Hey gamers! Do you remember that feeling you'd get when you brought home a brand new video game to play and how excited you were? But then you remembered you had plenty of other games you were already playing and shouldn't even think about starting a new game. Well, anyways, that's me, but times 25 years. Jason.
And I'm every second of your life you wasted quadcasting Knights of the Round while playing Final Fantasy VII. It's me, Patrick. Welcome to RPGaymer Season 3, Episode 5, a podcast about PS1 RPGs.
That's a long time, it's a couple years for one cast.
I looked it up. It's like a minute and a half for each cast, and then if you quadcast it, that's like 6 minutes of your life just gone to Knights of the Round.
You can get up and just like make dinner and then come back, and then he's still alive at the end, so.
Yeah, basically.
Well, this is an exciting topic for us, Patrick. I think we both are pretty well versed in PS1 RPGs. I feel like it's kind of where we bonded when we first met in college.
I have a master's in it, I think.
That's what
I went to Purdue for. So
I can attest that he went to Purdue for PS1 RPGs.
For video games. Yes.
we have some special guests with us today. Do you want to introduce them, Patrick?
Yeah, so this is like the season of guests, which has been so incredible. And in episode 2 of the season, we had K-Bash, but some other guys from the hood that we have been super into watching their content because they make good content are Gaming Broductions. We have Evan and Corbin here. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Very excited to have you.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for having us.
Thank you as well. Happy to be here.
What I want to know, because I'm sure we have some people that follow us that also follow you guys, and they may not know your story. What got you guys doing this little YouTube-y jam that you guys have been doing?
So we first started our YouTube channel pretty long time ago now, probably like 6 or 7 years ago. However, we really had no clear direction on where we wanted to take it. We kind of just had the idea of doing something with retro games, but beyond that, really had no clue. I think we put out like 1 or 2 videos, like a review of our Super Punch Out for the Super Nintendo, just kind of random stuff. But then we gave up for a long time. Life happened, got other jobs and stuff. So fast forward until 2020, then I think we all know what happened during that year. We had more free time than usual. So we decided to pick up the YouTube channel again, kind of more with a clear direction this time of focusing on RPGs. And kind of just started experimenting around with different styles from there, try to see what worked well, and kind of just moved on from there.
Why do RPGs mean so much to you guys? I mean, we could talk all day about why they mean so much to us, but how about you guys? What is it that makes them stand out?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, probably one of our first experiences playing a JRPG was Super Mario RPG.
Classic.
Yeah, definitely a gem. I think either our mom or dad got it for us was it for a birthday, Corbin?
Yeah, I think it was Christmas? My birthday that dad got it for us or for me. And I had known what Mario was at that point, but I had never heard of an RPG, so that part of it was just foreign. So when I first started playing it, I just had never played a game like it. The whole turn-based system and just the way exploration and all that stuff worked, it just really captivated me at that time. And at that point, I just didn't know really that was a genre. I just thought that, this game is like that, but that's it. So it wasn't until later on that I actually started diving into the genre more. I think I played Pokemon Blue around a similar time, so that was kind of like another gateway into the genre.
I had red, he had blue.
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
Of course, our parents had to split them up. Couldn't get us the same version.
Right.
Yeah, that worked out well though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Played that for so many hours.
Yeah.
So many hours.
My first serious RPG, I guess, for lack of better terms, was Legend of Gaia for the PS1, and that's kind of what really started my snowball effect of diving deeper into the genre and seeing everything that PS1 had to offer and all that good stuff.
Starting out kind of mid, but that's okay.
Definitely a game you cannot beat in a weekend from Blockbuster. I remember you were trying. I don't think it was before we had a memory card, and Corbin was trying to play it through, but can only go so far in a weekend playthrough.
Yeah, just make it to the first dungeon, beat the first boss, and think I made a pretty decent chunk in the game. Find out that that's maybe 2% of the game or something.
One tenth of the actual game. That's hilarious.
So it was fun.
And I mean, obviously, you guys are brothers. Jason and I are just like really, really good college friends. But what's it like being in this content creator space with your sibling? Like, how does that go for you guys?
It's been a real fun journey though. So I have a background in video editing, and of course, when 2020 happened, I was out of a lot of work. So that's when him and I started talking. Because at that time we were roommates, and it's like, hey, let's do this again. Let's pick it up. To start making a video. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just keep on pumping out stuff, and until we find our rhythm in this whole journey through creating YouTube content. And we had our ups and downs, and we had our backtracking a little bit, but we found our groove a little bit more, and we have a good, I guess, rhythm now of how we were able to have an idea and formulate a script and kind of piece together all the audio with the video. So it's been a good partnership, and it's been a fun journey though, and it's still growing and looking forward to more.
Yeah.
Now, Corbin, why don't you tell us what it's really like?
Right.
This is brotherly bullshit. This is not real.
I mean, yeah, since we are brothers, there are some times where we can be a little bit more blunt with each other without, like worrying about hurting each other's feelings or something like that. But generally speaking,
Right.
for the most part, we we get along super well. He can usually pick up on the kind of references I'm referring to, just because we obviously grew up together, so we think similarly in a lot of aspects. So
Very similar.
Yeah. So as far as like going from like the audio recording to the editing process, we're on a similar page generally. So that kind of helps expedite the process a bit.
Yeah, he'll say a quote from a movie, and I already know what he's referring to. Like, be some very obscure quote from like
some random '90s movie. I don't know.
Yeah, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just things like that. So we're able to pick up on each other's cues pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely does help. Instead of like trying to write out email, hey, at this section, put this part. Like we just know each other, like what we want.
I mean, that's the beauty of working with someone you love on something you love. You really just get to merge a bunch of different worlds. So I think that's kind of just speaks in the quality of your guys' work, where it's not like you can tell you take your work seriously from your videos, but it's also not so serious to the point where it's putting anyone off. It's very welcoming for everyone to just like jump in and pick your video and really enjoy the experience of what you guys feel about video games. It doesn't feel manufactured or anything like that. So look, kudos to you,
thank
because
you.
I love your content. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah, we've kind of always have tried to go for a kind of like a mix of like a casual style with more information too, like not trying to be strictly like serious documentary based, but also not trying to be like over the top humorous and stuff. Kind of like a mix of both to kind of make it more approachable, kind of like what you guys were saying.
Mm-hmm. And not clickbait, most importantly. So
Yeah, definitely try to steer away from that route. So
All right, guys. Well, thanks for the intro. I know we're going to get to know each other more through our podcast here. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Let's talk about some RPGs, shall we? I know you've already kind of given us a little base intro here, but if you had to pick maybe one word to describe a PS1 RPGs as a whole, what would that be?
Good question. So 2 words instantly come to mind, which I know it's like cheating.
I had 2 words too, so you're totally
Okay.
fine. You go right ahead.
I'd say epic and long.
Yeah.
Long.
Epic
Yeah,
and long.
I feel like the PS1's a generation where RPGs really started to pick up in length. I mean, Super Nintendo RPGs were generally pretty long too, but there's like a lot of RPGs on the PS1 that are like well over 50 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Some are close to 100, if not 100 even. So,
Right.
yeah.
I would say for me, childhood. I think at that
nice.
point,
Mhm.
like the games we played before were like platformers and action games and some shooters, but diving into the PS1, it was mostly what we had for that console was role playing games. And there's times where we'd be in the basement together playing these games. Either I'd be watching him, or he watches me, or we play 2 games at the same time, so we're both zoned in on each other's games, or our own games we're playing. It's just like the time we really got into role playing games was the PS1. So it definitely always holds a special place in my heart. And it's just Saturday morning, wake up and maybe eat a little breakfast, and we go downstairs and we just lab on the PS1 for hours, or we just switch off watching each other. So to me, that's just my own personal take on it.
I feel like you guys are probably around the same age as us, like mid 30s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like 31,
So, yeah.
I believe.
I'm
You
33.
didn't think about it.
I had to think about like
Yeah.
31, 32. I think I'm 31. I feel like all the years blend together, you know.
Yeah.
once
After
we get to this
25,
age.
they all just blend.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When you said childhood, that's what stuck out to me, and I know this is the same for Jason with his siblings, where it was just very much like Saturday morning, my brother and I playing Final Fantasy VII,
Mhm.
you know, and like that was very the moment, and it wasn't really something that we did before with Super Nintendo or Nintendo, and it wasn't really something we did after, because at that point, like, we started going our separate ways just into adulthood. But like, yeah, I think childhood is a huge word for summing up for a lot of us older gamers, the PS1 era RPG.
sure.
I know for me, I think the two words that stick out the most, I think expansion was a big thing, talking about where we were coming from with the Super Nintendo RPGs. And then the other word, I was trying to find a way to describe it, but anime. I think we're starting to see a lot of anime influences really starting to pick up into RPGs, which you didn't see before. Like a lot of anime tropes are really starting to trickle in here.
Right.
So I think those are like the two. Couldn't decide on which one, so those were the two I went with. What about you, Jason?
I had to really think about it. It actually inspired me to write an entire piece in my blog, but I went with pivotal. I went with pivotal because I feel like I can't remember, Corbin or Evan, one of you guys mentioned like you rented a game and you couldn't beat it for the weekend. That's very similar to me too. But I think I would say pivotal because I had the experience Patrick was talking about with my brothers, where I would play like fighting games, racing games, Mario together. But it was really RPGs that were like mine. Like I played RPGs. And so when I finally got, actually Super Mario RPG is one of my first two.
Nice.
But really Final Fantasy 9. Knowing I couldn't beat it in one weekend, we had to rent it again. And like thinking like, this is video games. Like I like this. I get to read, I get to strategize, all this other stuff I don't get to do in Killer Instinct or Super Mario World. Like all this different stuff. And so that was like, this is Jason's genre. And it was pretty cool. Turning point for like me in terms of gaming and collecting and all I do now.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, like,
yeah, that's really cool.
PS1 RPGs were so like narrative focused and cinematic back then. It was kind of like you're like watching a movie or reading a book or something, you know. It's like more than just like a video game kind of.
Well, Patrick, didn't you even say that RPGs helped you read? Or was it something like that?
Well, so Final Fantasy 1 was my first RPG, and this is more for you guys than it is for the listeners, but like my parents didn't really buy that I could read or not, because they were always pushing books on me, and I was like, I don't care for books. Which is funny because I was an English major. But Final Fantasy 1, even though there wasn't like a solid amount of text between that and the strategy guide, like I really pushed myself to try to figure out what was going on, and you have to read in order to understand where to go next. So that was the moment for me as a little kid, and just kind of figuring out life, and I use video games to do it.
Corbin, didn't you bring a strategy guide to a book report one time?
Oh yeah, I mean, I brought some strategy guides to school to like read instead of like books or whatever, stuff like that.
Perfect.
You know,
I thought you did like a book report one time.
Oh, that was on like
on a strategy guide.
No, that was on a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time book. It wasn't a strategy guide.
Oh yeah,
it was like an actual book they sold in the store.
Was it like the novelization? I might have read that.
Yeah, it was like kind of like
cool.
I forget who wrote it or something, but yeah, kind of just like a pretty basic book take on the Ocarina of Time story. Yeah, I did a book.
I'm pretty sure I read the exact same book.
That's awesome.
Good old, that great old book fair they had at the schools.
Oh yeah, the Scholastic book fair.
Yeah,
classics for
they
sure.
They open up the cabinets, all the books are in. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny that we're silently roasting you about that, but like from my experience as an English teacher, and I doing primarily high school, knowing now that like anything that's going to get a kid reading is what matters. I wouldn't care what a kid brought in as long as it was appropriate material and
bringing
like
joy
if
to
it
reading.
is,
Yeah,
I mean, like if it is a video game manual, or if it is you know, like something like that, or even if it's above their level, anything that's going to push a kid to read is great. But yeah, we don't have to spend all day
not a reading
that.
podcast. Right.
Now, one thing you said was Legends of Legaia was kind of like the first PS1 RPG you played, but would you say that's the one that really got you hooked into PS1 RPGs, or were there some that came later that was like, yes, this is it, like this is when it really made your mind like, I'm living a true experience of a genre right now?
So honestly, I was pretty hooked into Legend of a Guy when I first played it, just because I had really never experienced something that, I guess, kind of epic, mature and stuff. So I was pretty hooked alone based on that. But my next few RPGs really kind of solidified that feeling for me. I believe I played Wild Arms 2, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 9, Chrono Cross, which honestly I didn't really like Chrono Cross back when I first played it. It kind of went over my head a little bit, and
that was my game.
A little too out
it
there
does that.
for me. I've grown to like really love it now, but back then it was just kind of confusing, I think. But yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it's just kind of a different take on the genre in some aspects.
Well, and it's definitely more adult too. Like I feel like the narrative wasn't as fun. Like Legends of Dragoon was flashy and epic, and Final Fantasy 9 was like wholesome, but then you have something like Chrono Cross where it's definitely super deep, mature themes, whether you're coming in from Chrono Trigger or not. There's just something like a little bit more high tiered in the narrative than there was in some of the other games, and the mechanics too. So I totally get that.
Plus like the whole like, you know, there's so many recruitable characters. I just thought that was kind of like weird to me. I was like, why is this random like Mojo Straw Doll joining my party? Like, why is this little pink dog joining me? You know, stuff like that. It was just different compared to like other more traditional RPGs I had played at that point. Plus the battle system with the whole like element system was just, I was, like I said, I was like 9 or 10, so I didn't really understand it. Kind of went over my head. So kind of back then, the simpler and the more basic, the better. I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards certain RPGs back then and didn't appreciate other ones until kind of like later on when I was older.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was all about collecting, like, you know, Pokemon. So playing Chrono Cross was like up my alley. So I was always trying to recruit all the characters. And I keep on saying, but I love that game so much. I played like 7 times. After, you know, you do the New Game Plus, you can just speed through it so quickly.
Yeah,
and,
you beat that one a lot. I remember.
I don't know. I just got hooked on it. It was the music, the atmosphere, the colors, the characters. It was a whole package deal.
It's
and
a
I was
beautiful
just,
game.
Atmosphere
it truly is
top notch for sure.
That was the one that really got me into the PS1 RPGs. And of course, I watched Corbin, you know, play Wild Arms a lot, especially the second one. I remember
you watched me play Breath of Fire 3 a lot. I kind of forgot to mention that one. But that was another one of the earlier ones I played that I got pretty hooked. And I remember Evan would always love watching me play that. We'd be eating like dinner, and then he'd look at me and say, Breath of Fire 3, and then we'd go downstairs afterwards, boot it up.
Breath of Fire 3.
That's the most 90s brother, like the video game commercial thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
You could definitely get a cheesy 90s commercial. 100%.
With those weird cuts for no reason, zooms in.
I see it all now visually, how it all pans out. It's commercial. But yeah.
I think I kind of mentioned mine already, but it's definitely Final Fantasy 9 for me.
Great game,
Yeah, super great game. But I think for me, I joined PS1 RPGs really late. Like, we didn't actually have a PlayStation for a while, and even then it was my brother's. It was in his room, and like his friends would play. But once he got a PS2, he gave me his PS1, and that's when it started to play a lot more. So I don't think I had a PlayStation till like 2000. Like it was pretty late. But like 9 was the one that I rented. 9 was the one that got me hooked. So then I went back and played a whole bunch more. But kind of similar to Chrono Cross, like it was just so big, so bright, so colorful, so fun. The music was amazing, and it was just such an experience that I thought, hey, RPGs, maybe they all give me this, because I had also played Mario RPG, and so I'm just thinking like this is the way to go. So I think that game just hooked me and never really looked back.
Nice. Final Fantasy 9 is
cool.
my personal favorite in the series. So
it's
you're all
the best
about that.
one. So
big fan. Well, that was the first Final Fantasy game that I actually remember beating, and I like beat it all the way through, never like stopped or put it like down. I remember when I first played 7, I was like into it, but I don't know. I hit a point where I eventually stopped, didn't pick it up until years later. But Final Fantasy 9, that like hooked me in from start to finish. So,
Patrick, what about you?
Well, unlike you young whippersnappers,
Wow.
I started very early in the PS1 era, so I think and I was a big RPGer before, because like starting with Final Fantasy 1, and then I was fortunate enough to have a Sega and be able to borrow a Super Nintendo, so I got to kind of experience a lot of those RPGs as they were coming out. But I think very early, the first RPG that set me in for PS1 was Wild Arms 1. It was
Very
doing a
nice.
lot of things that the games before didn't do
Yeah, totally.
yet. I think the only game that I can think of that really compared to it on the Super Nintendo was probably Lufia 2, where you had, a lot of puzzle elements in dungeons, which you didn't really see. I think before, dungeons were literally like get to point A to point B as fast as possible, getting as many treasure chests as you could.
Right.
So there was something very gripping about that. And then having a very clear narrative and so focused on very few characters that you can really hone in on and care about. So I was hooked from there. Like I just knew, because I know the games you're mentioning. I have fortunately found a website that kind of listed the release dates of the RPGs, and I think some of the ones that you guys were saying were a little bit on towards the later side, but like Wild Arms 1, I would say, is probably the first-ish good PS1 RPG. Like you had some come out that were decent, or at least like good stepping stones for sequels later down the line. But I think that was the first one where you were like, wow, like this is a good game. Like this is a good start.
Is Wild Arms 1's like 1996? Like what are we talking? Like when did that come out?
Wild Arms 1 was 97. The first RPG was Kingsfield 2 in 95. And like there's Suikoden 1 and Persona 1. Those came out before it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they were like great entries.
They weren't like huge hits.
There was also like a Beyond the Beyond.
We'll talk about we'll talk about that game.
Yeah, right.
I have a lot to say.
Yeah. That's funny you bring up Wild Arms though. We're actually working on a retrospective for that game right now. So I played a lot of Wild Arms recently.
It's one of my favorite series. I recently, a lot of my old games got stolen in college, and I dropped my full savings account on picking them back up, like the PS2 versions of it. So I get it. That's in my top 5 favorite series of all time. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Wild Arms is like one of the, if not maybe the RPG series I kind of have the most nostalgic memories for. Just between Wild Arms 2, 1, and 3. I did play Wild Arms 2 first, but I went back and played Wild Arms 1. Also loved that a lot. And on this most recent playthrough for this retrospective, I was like super, super impressed with a lot of aspects, Like it's genuinely one of the more fun experiences I've had for retrospectives on our channel so far. And the video is like going to be like an hour and a half long. So, I had a lot to say.
I will consume every second of it. And when we do a deep dive into the Wild Arms series, guess who I'm going to invite?
Ooh, very nice. Yeah, absolutely down. Absolutely down.
So I mentioned the Super Nintendo, and I think a lot of people feel very similar that like the Super Nintendo is a huge point for RPGs. And then I think on the other side of the fence, you're kind of seeing people saying the PS1 might be the pinnacle of time. What do you think this era holds? Is it the title holder of the golden era of RPGs compared to the other ones, or do you think it kind of lands somewhere else?
Ooh, I got you. I was starting this.
Take it away.
I think we live in a time where it's great that we have two essentially amazing times to compare. So Super Nintendo and PS1. Let's just say it's those two. I feel like the PS1 might take the cake in popularity just because there are more gamers that are probably playing games at that time. So I think based on the discussions we've had here, many of us have said like, oh, I played this game first, but I really got hooked here, or this was my favorites. I think it's because gaming in general was more popular and started to get more content around the PS1 era. Also, we just got more RPGs, like flat out. They just came out.
There are
way
more than 50 releases, and like a lot of them are good releases. Not even counting like if you look at an RPG list now for like the 3DS or the GBA or whatever system, you see a lot of those. Oh, I never saw that title, or that got like a 4 out of 10. I would never touch it. But the PS1 does not have that. Like a lot of these titles are really good.
Like a lot of classics,
pumping out gems.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
Like to SNES's credit, it has huge hitters. Like, I mean, Chrono Trigger, the 2 Final Fantasies, Mario RPG, like those are fantastic games. And the PS1,
Trinity.
yeah, right. the Trinity. The PS1 has, I would say, arguably equally heavy hitters, and then they fill in the gaps between those with like mid-level to very good RPGs. Like, I know we're ragging on Legend of Legaia, but like it's still pretty good. Legend of Dragoon is pretty good. And people don't really play Wild Arms all that much, but those are good games, and like they're all on that system. So I would have to say, if I picked one, like ride or die, like it's PS1. Like it has to take it.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm definitely biased towards the PS1 because that was when I first started really getting into the genre. But I do think just the PS1 kind of has more variety overall. I mean, like the Super Nintendo, you have like 2D games only. PS1, you have like both 2D RPGs and 3D RPGs. So there's just a little bit more variety in the kind of like style of gameplay, cinematics, and everything. And like you said, there's just a lot of heavy hitters for that like console too. I mean, you know, the PS1 Final Fantasy games, Xenogears, Suikoden 2, Grandia. Yeah, there's just, you know, you can go on and on and on. There's just a lot of like classics that are still very fondly remembered and still talked about.
Yeah.
And the Ground Zero too. Like a lot of those titles that you were saying, like this is where they started.
That's they start.
Yeah.
With the SNES, you know, it definitely lay a lot of the foundation for what you see today, you know, and, you know, the SNES can only, you know, do so much as far as like what it can process as far as data and everything. Where the PS1 just amplify the graphics and the music. For me, I'm really into music, so that was like a really big thing for me when I was playing games on, you know, the PS1. And, you know, you're allowed to really put more, give each character's like more of a background as compared to like, you know, NES games, which is like kind of, you know, pretty basic. And of course, SNES improved upon that. So, and there's just a lot of great games to PS1. Then there's, you know, I would say, you know, JRPGs for the PS1 were definitely more mainstream, I would say, as they progressed compared to the SNES when they first came out. No one really knew what they really were, though. But when people who did play, like, wow, these are amazing. I wish there was more of these. And that's when the PS1 came out, and boom, there's just like a plethora of gems out there.
Final Fantasy VII definitely changed the game for that, getting RPGs on the worldwide map, I feel.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. We want to talk about overrated games. We could talk about Final Fantasy VII all day, but that could be a different podcast later.
I mean, like when like comparing it to current, you know, other like later entries, it falls short in some aspects. But like during the time it came out, it did do like a lot of things differently, and it was just really cinematic for one. I think that kind of sold a lot of gamers how like just immersive it seemed compared to some Super Nintendo
so real
RPGs.
I feel like there's a conversation to be had there too, because I think moving from, let's just pick on Final Fantasy, from 6 to 7, like visually has to be the biggest difference from that one. I mean, story-wise, of course.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the cinematics on the CD were really cool. I mean, they look like hot garbage nowadays, but like it was pretty amazing.
Then it was amazing.
Right.
It was so cool. And someone else mentioned how there's just not as much processing power on the SNES. Totally agree. Like you can do so much more. Like there's just so many more in-depth things to move on, and it's just impressive. Really impressive.
I want to piggyback off what you said there, Jason, because I feel like it's a really good time to talk about it since it was brought up. And we talked about Final Fantasy VII, and you said it's kind of overrated. And that's something that we've talked about a few times on the podcast. I want to talk about what you guys think are some games that maybe they get too much praise. Like, what are some titles for you guys that you feel like people are always talking about, and you know they're good games, but they might not be as good as what people say or think about them?
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely
this will not get you canceled.
I was like, you could definitely allow for some controversial opinions here.
The moment of truth.
There's maybe a couple that come to mind, and like I do want to reiterate, I do like these games. I just don't think one of them in particular, I feel like maybe gets a little bit too much praise in retrospect. I feel like a lot of people talk very highly of the Legend of Dragoon and consider it like one of the all-time greats and like a classic and stuff. And I mean, I do like.
No
the
one
game.
Can see me very emphatically nodding my head, listening, but very emphatically nodding my head. Yeah.
I agree. I can attest he is doing that.
Yeah. So like, I do like the game. You know, we made a retrospective of it a couple years back, and I beat it and still enjoyed my time with it. But by the end, it kind of starts dragging. It has some really high points. The atmosphere is incredible. The visuals, the music.
Visuals are impressive.
Yeah, so like the atmosphere is awesome. But like the writing is just so stiff and unnatural, and it kind of like takes me out. It's hard to get invested in the story when the writing just feels so awkward and stiff. And like some of the story is cool. Like there's some really interesting ideas behind the lore. It's just the writing falls really short, and the addition system was cool at first, but it just makes battles take way too long by the end of the game. Between like the startup animations of the battle, how long the additions are, how many button presses they have, how complex they get. Random battles just kind of turn into a slog. Then by the end of the game, you're kind of like, I'm just over random battles. I kind of just want to move on to see the story and all that stuff. So there's just a lot of aspects I don't feel like it's that great in. But if you look at like Reddit and YouTube comments now, like so many people praise it as like better than the Final Fantasies back then and one of the best PS1 RPGs.
No.
Yeah.
So I have a lot to say, and I've brought this up several times, like throughout our 3 seasons of this podcast, where this is one of those games that I played through the 3rd disc and I put down because it just wasn't having a good time anymore, and that was as a kid. So I'm definitely going to come back as an adult and try it again. But I felt very similarly, and like it came out 3 years after Final Fantasy VII. And I don't really feel like there was that much progress. It's a couple months away from Final Fantasy IX. I basically think it's Final Fantasy Power Rangers.
They
translated
Power
way to
Rangers.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh,
I feel like
that's
if
a
you
cool
were a
take.
Power Rangers fan, then like that's why it definitely has that big like flashy anime boy hype. I just feel like it kind of had that flash attention grabbing stuff, and you got to see a lot more of the animated attacking and whatnot, which really brought people in. But I like it was more style over substance for me too. I'm right there with you. Totally support you on that.
Nice. Glad we can have some similar opinions here.
Commonality
Not
here.
like make
Let's
too
go.
many like enemies with these hot takes. So
Yeah.
I mean, I did really enjoy Final Fantasy VII, but I kind of want to hop on the bandwagon that it is probably just praised too much. I'm sure what I could say has already been said already. I enjoyed it though, but honestly, kind of oddly, I really did enjoy Final Fantasy VIII. I don't know. I like the intro of the video for it a lot, and the music kind of really kind of got me into it. And of course, the card collecting aspect of it as well. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just the graphics when it came out. It looked kind of just, I don't know, blocky and kind of like Tomb Raider-esque in a way, but 8 was a little bit more, I guess, realistic because it actually looked like a person compared to like this looks like just little stubby, chubby little
Some
blocky
cubes on top
people.
of more cubes.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
I would have
enjoyed-
loved to see what Tifa's boobs looked like in Final Fantasy if she was in Final Fantasy VIII versus
Oh,
Final
man.
Fantasy.
yeah, game changer.
very edgy, like, very pointy in some ways, But yeah, I mean, that's probably my take on it, though. I mean, I did enjoy it, though, but yeah,
I think your guys are like totally solid on that too. I think the 2 games that if I had to pick out, would be those 2 games. I think Final Fantasy VII really falls apart after Midgar. The narrative also really only focuses on 3-4 characters, and then the rest of the characters just kind of take a back seat, and it's like, why do we even have these extra characters when they're not even pivotal to the main plot? So for as good as sections of the game are, it really makes me curious about the rest of the game. And I think that's one of the things that we see about Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I really like Final Fantasy VII Remake because it is all in Midgar and they really fleshed out that full story. But even the creators have talked about, we don't know how we're going to handle, is it Rebirth?
The rest of
like,
this.
The rest of this game, because
the
like,
rest of the game,
it is just so all over the place. And when you were talking about Final Fantasy VIII is pretty consistent in the world and how the world develops up until maybe like the very end when the whole time collapse happens. But like 7, it's just kind of like, oh, we're in this city for a long time, and then like, cool, you're everywhere and everything is happening. So you're totally right. I'm there with you.
We haven't really talked about it yet, but could we talk about Final Fantasy Tactics? Is that an RPG? Is that doable in here?
Oh, yeah.
I think that fits
Yeah,
here.
Oh yeah,
I always think
I definitely
category
dabble in that quite a
RPGs,
bit.
Yeah, they count under the same like umbrella term of RPGs. I feel for sure.
Good. I'm not ragging on that one. I do think that one's great, but in liking that one, I would look for other games that people would recommend, and tons of folks recommended. Oh my god, I'm losing it. Tactics Ogre, like the re-release that they came out on the PS1, and it is just not as good. I feel like going from one to the other, I think I went the wrong direction people are like, this one's so much better, the story is better. And I mean, maybe, but I kind of doubt it. But the interesting thing is, I think I enjoy Tactics Ogre more when they remade it. So like when it came out later, they fixed issues, and I'm like, now I would think it's a better game. But just at that time, I couldn't handle it, and I was like, this is getting too much hype. Like, you might as well just be playing Final Fantasy Tactics instead. It's largely the exact same type of game. It's just done better.
It's made by like the same director, right? I think.
Yeah, I think so. So like if you are getting recommended that game, just play they just re-released it, I think, on like PS5 and everything too. Just play that one instead. Like, don't play the original one, it's not as good.
I wonder if Tactics holds better in your mind because there's that level of familiarity there too, where like you know all the classes and you have a pretty good idea of the world, but like Tactics Ogre doesn't have that benefit because, you know, Enix didn't really have well, I guess they had the Ogre battle games before, but it didn't really feel like there was a huge connection because it was a totally different place.
It's very different. It's super duper different. And I think Corbin, maybe you were saying like you have a sense of familiarity with like what you played before, so playing something new and you expect it to be there, like when it's not there, you're kind of like, oh, this isn't as fun, or like you didn't understand Chrono Cross for that reason. And it was probably similar. I bet if I go back as a mid-30s something person and play it again, I could respect it more, but nah, just play a different one instead.
Fair enough. Yeah. Tactics Ogre did come out before Final Fantasy Tactics, right? I believe
it did. I believe so.
So I feel like it's kind of like it like laid the foundation there, but Final Fantasy Tactics kind of streamlined a bit, made it just maybe more accessible, a little bit more fun, arguably.
What's the phrase? Tactics Ogre walks, so Final Fantasy Tactics could run, or something like that.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty accurate, I would say.
Yeah, which also kind of reminds me, at that point for the PS1, we had a Game Shark, and we tried it for the 64 and the Game Boy. And I remember one time I was like, know what, I'm gonna try it on FF Tactics. I got
I already
pretty
know
far.
where the story is going.
And man, that just changed the whole experience. Like, this is like not that fun anymore because I was just so OP'd, and I think at that point I had Cloud, and I was like, I even tried on that and Breath of Fire 3. It's like, all right, this is fun. I think one time I had it when I was trying to beat Garland in the arena as a young Ryu. It's like, but he can't beat me though. I'm like way overpowered, but you can't progress in the game because because
you
of
need
that.
to lose.
Oh yeah, because
it's like
you're supposed to lose. Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I was like, oh, this is fun for a bit, but nah, I'd rather just actually earn the, and progress through it naturally.
It definitely takes away the fun. Experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's fun for a little hot second, but yeah, no, I'd rather just earn it the way it should and grind for it.
Like a lot of the fun comes from like the strategy and the proper preparation, and all that stuff goes out the window when you're level 99 in the first 5 hours of the game. So
we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
We are coming back. I am refueled with our coffee, and I want to touch on something I think Corbin said earlier. You're replaying Wild Arms, and looking at it now in the 2020s, like, is this game worth it for someone that maybe has never played it before? There are many other options they could play, but what are you feeling? How do these games hold up?
So like it obviously depends on what specific RPG you're referring to. In the case of Wild Arms, I definitely do think this one holds up pretty well amongst its PS1 RPG peers. I mean, presentation style, it is more styled after like, a Super Nintendo RPG and stuff, but I think it just looks really well. It's got more, kind of that timeless look and style to it.
It looks like it's made an RPG maker, like a really early
version. It does.
You know what I mean? Like,
there are definitely similarities. And yeah, even besides that though, like there's a lot of aspects that in my opinion hold up super, super well. The music is extremely good. Like I think it's definitely one of the best OSTs on the PS1 for sure.
Wow, bold statement.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's like the best, but like it's definitely, near the top, I would say. It's very, very good.
I support you on this notion.
Yeah. Very good, very good. And yeah, just even like the exploration. We kind of talked about it earlier, like just the tool system. It just allows for a lot more interesting dungeon traveling than just, like you said, going from point A to point B, walking through like boring corridors and stuff. And yeah, just the story, the characters, it's kind of a smaller group of characters, so they do get more development than something like, you know, Chrono Cross trying to develop like 40 different characters or whatever. So it's just like a well-paced story, well-paced game, fun exploration, great music, and yeah, I do think this one holds up and would recommend it to people looking to get into it for the first time.
The only thing I think a little weird about it is the localization, because when it became free on PS4, PS5, or if you had purchased it on
Vita.
On Vita, which I did, like I picked it up and started playing again. I noticed that some of the translation was like a little weird in some spots and a little weak, but I think that was the only thing where I was like, that is the only thing that's keeping me from like being, this is a top tier game, you know what I mean? Like it's still way up there, but like not perfect because of those like little weird localization things. But I'm totally with you on a lot of that. Like it is one of those ones where I could be easily like, most RPG players who are okay with turn-based battles would love this game.
It's like definitely a very easy one to recommend in that sense. You know, it's like you kind of know what you're like getting with it. Doesn't do anything like extremely ambitious, I would say, but it just like executes the basics really, really well and does enough things that are still different and unique to kind of give it its own identity and flavor and whatnot, I feel.
Yeah. I think for me, like in general, I feel like most RPGs on PS1 can hold up well, but you have to sit with like either your nostalgia goggles on or the understanding that this is an old console, just like the way it would work. Like if it has, I don't know, tank controls or something like really poor. So don't expect like, you know, amazing quality in that regard. But I would say for the most part, many of these games hold up. And I want to pick on Final Fantasy IX again. I had a friend who kind of replayed it about a year or two ago. Actually, might have been his first playthrough. And commenting that he really enjoyed the story, thought it was really well written and it was fun to follow through, and he loved the music. And I was like, you know, those are like evergreen things. Like that won't change. Like the story is always the same and the music is always the same. They can re-record it, I guess. But like the gameplay is what probably holds it back. And so like maybe it's getting dated, but I think when I think of some of these games, again, just looking at Final Fantasy IX, like my nostalgia is with Zidane and Dagger and Vivi and their story, and it's with the music that plays, like the battle music theme, the overworld theme. Like that's what sticks with me, and I think those things will always hold up.
For sure. I think a big problem with some PS1 RPGs is kind of the pacing of battles. I kind of talked about this in one of our videos about length in RPGs.
Sure.
Because like one of the biggest gripes with Final Fantasy IX nowadays is how slow the combat is. It like pans around the field like multiple times,
like 4 times.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, all right, man,
like, too much. Like
just get to it, man. Right? Let's go. So I get it where I'm at.
So like the recent ports of those games do kind of alleviate that issue, giving you the fast forward option during battles. So that makes a big difference, I think. And I would say that's kind of like a big reason why I think some PS1 RPGs have aged better than others, is because of the pacing of battles. Like, Suikoden 1 and 2 have like extremely quick systems, and I think this has allowed it to age a lot better than some other slower moving RPGs from back then, like, you know, The Legend of Dragoon, for example, again.
Patrick had like talked to me about playing Breath of Fire 3 because I never played Breath of Fire, any of them, and so I'm in Breath of Fire 3, but the reason I'm really not playing it is that exact reason. It is very slow. Yeah. And like just loading each battle, doing the fights, going through it, like it's just dated and slow. And man, kind of stinks. Like I wish it was faster because I want to like keep playing and enjoying it, but it's slowing me down.
For sure.
The hardest thing about PS1 RPGs is probably the clunk. Like I think the clunk that comes with it being an older system, that clunk kind of got smoothed out a little bit in PS2 era, where like you still had load times, but they weren't as bad. Like comparatively, like they're not great to today's standards, but they definitely weren't as bad. So clunk is a hard thing to recommend games to people. Like my husband and I technically aren't married. We are, but legally. But I made him sign a marriage contract when we were first getting married, where we weren't technically married until he beat a Legends of Zelda and a Final Fantasy.
Oh wow.
It was a binding contract.
It's an ultimatum.
Because he's not a big gamer, so like it's cute and funny, but I'm also like dead on the inside that he has to beat the
But for
Final
real,
Fantasy.
though. Yeah.
But a part of the reason why it's hard for him, he's beaten Legend of Zelda, but it's hard to go back to play some of the older Final Fantasies because A, they're long, and B, they're clunky. So 9 is the game that I would have him play, and he's like, we've been talking about it a lot in the podcast lately, so he's like, oh, this sounds fun, I want to play this one, and I'm
Do
like,
it.
okay, but like 80 hours later,
Get ready for
after-
75 hours.
Yeah,
Long
right.
journey.
It's a
Yeah,
commitment.
30.
Yeah.
Let's get into this big bulk of the discussion here, because here we are talking about how this like anthology of games is great, and there has to be some games that you guys feel really stand out well above the rest. What are some of those games to you? And you don't have to like really go into them, but maybe like say what one of the games is and then give us like the one thing that really made it stand out as this is a unique experience.
Okay.
Unique experience.
So we've talked about it a lot already. I think it's all clear. We're big fans of Final Fantasy 9 here. That is definitely an absolute classic to me. The story, the characters, the music, just timeless in that aspect. Like I said, the gameplay a little bit dated. But overall, that's definitely one. Xenogears is another one. I feel just the story is just so unique and out there, and like, you know, maybe doesn't make the most clearest sense at times, but just like the grand scope of it is like admirable, I feel.
Well, we talked about it in our last video about cozy RPGs, and you know, you can argue with it, but Monster Rancher 2 for me definitely holds a special spot.
Monster Rancher.
Man, just the whole collecting aspect and just finding a disc in your house and popping it in and see what you get and trying to raise it was just a blast. I remember one time Corbin and I went through like our mom and dad's like collection. We grabbed like 40, 50 discs and just start trying everything we can, like see what we can come up with. And of course, I think
you get that Terminator 2 disc and you get that metal jelly. It was amazing. I was so surprised. Like,
nothing compares to an experience like that.
Yeah,
like
that's
there
unique.
aren't many things that have really like copied that or found a better way to do that. I think the only thing I can think of that's close is Amiibos, and that's not even like the exact same. It's just like maybe the closest.
Similar
and
concept.
also what a baller cartoon that was.
I used to watch that a lot back in the day. Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So good. I think for me, some of the good ones are Grandia for creating a different spin on the ATB system.
That
really stuck out.
Yeah.
And Parasite Eve 2.
Patrick,
Sorry,
you gotta stop taking the examples I'm gonna give. Now I have to think of something else.
Parasite Eve TOO, not TWO.
Okay.
Just from the blending of genres, like you think RPGs are all fantasy and whatnot, and here we have something in like modern society. And we have this horror RPG amalgamation like that. That was one of those ones where it's I would not say it's the greatest game, but even now
it stands out as unique.
It stands out as unique, and there are not a lot of RPGs that are taking place in a society like our society. Like that for me, what was huge. My brother and I, so speaking of renting games from Blockbuster and trying to beat it in a weekend, like you could do it for that one, and we sure did. Like the full weekend was spent on that.
That's awesome.
Well, my two
really
games
cool.
were also Parasite Eve and Grandia, so I'm a little at a loss here. But I do think that I have a special like place in my heart for Final Fantasy Tactics, and it does have sequels, but it never quite felt the same. So like maybe getting like something like that would be great.
Definitely, I agree. Grandia is definitely a favorite of mine too. That's probably like a top 3, if not top 5 at least. PS1 RPG for me for sure.
You're always playing that. I remember just you were logging some serious hours.
Both Grandia 1 and 2. I played those a lot for sure.
It's very addictive.
Yeah, Grandia is a weird one. I feel like you only get into Grandia or Grandia, I don't know however you want to say it. Like if you've already dabbled in other RPGs, it is a layer down from like the beginning of RPGs. I don't know if people really start there. I feel like you have to kind of get used to it and then be like, I want to try this, and then you play Grandia.
I think it's a part of those like heavy anime RPGs where a lot of Final Fantasy games I really didn't feel like had that anime influence, but I feel like Grandia did. The other game that I would say is a huge unique experience, and it's something that we don't see very much anymore. And speaking of like heavy anime oriented games was Lunar Silver Star Story.
Oh, that's great.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Great
think
game.
this game is so unique in the sense, like, it was, I think, I wouldn't say the first game that had voice acting, but I think it was the first game that had real voice acting.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was quality voice acting to the point where there's a full-on like musical in the game.
Yeah.
Like that to me, even now, like, stands out. Having your mind blown when you is either when you beat the game or you have the optional disc to do the behind the scenes stuff with the actors and actresses and all the things that they were doing to like get the
that
game
was
ready.
really
So
cool. I remember watching
Yeah.
that too. We made a video last year where we included Lunar, and I was looking at the behind the makings of it and stuff, and it was kind of a big big nostalgic trip to the past to watch that for the first time in like 20 years. Yeah, it was cool. Plus the same people
Seeing how
made
far videos are now,
Grandia also, so
Oh,
That's
really?
right, yeah.
Game Arts, I'm pretty sure.
Game Arts.
Yeah.
It's Game Arts. Yeah. Mhm.
Are there any games of your never-ending list of PS1 games that you would love to see get a remake or a reboot, or if they don't have one already, a direct sequel? And you can put the standard on that however you want. It could just be like an HD remake, or it could be like a full Final Fantasy VII R inspired remake. Whatever. Like, what would you like to see that needs to be revived?
So, sorry, you can go ahead.
Okay. I feel like for me, one game that I have admittedly never actually beaten, I've never beaten Xenogears. And I want to, I just never got around to it. I know it's your like Discord logo. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
But like it just, I fell out of it, and now it's difficult to play. And like I mean, like physically, like it's hard to find a copy. Has it been re-released? It probably has been, but like a remake of that or a retelling, especially because Xenoblade Chronicles is so big, like maybe it's cool to bring that back. Like that would be a fun one. I'd love to see just have a second chance to shine again.
Corbin, you said that was yours too?
Yeah, like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do with that franchise. I mean, you could just remake the original game, or this would never happen, actually. But, you know, it was supposed to be a part of like a 6-part series. I think Xenogears was like episode 5, so getting the other games in that supposed series would be cool, because it was supposed to be like a
aren't those technically Xeno's saga? Like they're technically a part of the same thing, because the redheaded girl pops up in all of them, who's Ellie in Xenogears. I think there's some like very like loose connection where they're not like direct sequel, but like it's all the same kind of universe.
Yeah, I mean, there might be. I'm honestly not as knowledgeable on the Xenosaga series. Never played that one too much. I just remember reading in like the Xenogears Perfect Works book. There's supposed to be like 6 different episodes, and Xenogears was episode 5. I guess I didn't look into the exact specifics of what each episode would be. It was just kind of supposed to expand that whole universe and lore and stuff. So I just think getting more entries in that series would be cool.
Yeah. I would love for them, this is on my, like, as soon as I asked the question, I knew what I was going to say, Xenogears as well, just because I want them to go back and fix the ending, because they ran out of time. And that's why the second half of the game, a lot of it is your main character sitting in a chair, and like it's literally just like a script telling you what's going on in the world. And like I remember I played that in like the 7th or 8th grade, and I was like, is this a joke? Like
you got the bad ending where you don't get to play it.
So it'd be cool for them to like go back and see what the intention was, like what was going to happen there, if they, and that was the big thing for Square Enix then, where a lot of games we did not get the full development cycle. Like they weren't coming out as complete actualized games. I know Chrono Cross suffered from the same issue. And a few other games,
I was gonna bring that up too.
Yeah.
It definitely gets rushed towards like the end. They kind of start scrambling ways to like tie it all together, I feel. Having a fully realized second disc in Xenogears would definitely be awesome, because there was a lot of stuff there that the ideas were great. It's just like you said, it was just told in a scrolling through text, black screen, kind of stuff, just kind of whizzed on by. A lot of like very important moments.
Kind of boring. Not really much.
Definitely a jarring switch from the first disc.
It's like, oh, cool. This is fun, I guess.
Evan, what's your game that you would have remade if you could?
Well, I would say Chrono Cross, which that just came out, so that would have been my first pick here. But as I think more about it, though, Breath of Fire 3, as you said, the battles can be a bit slow. So I would say almost that one could get redone. Or,
I would love that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or kind of more updated graphics for Final Fantasy VIII. Maybe an esque of like Final Fantasy VII. But I would say definitely one of those two would be definitely nice to see me modernize into today.
Breath of Fire just deserves a resurgence.
It really does. That game is so solid.
It's a great series, It has like a really cool overall feel and identity to it, like the different animal characters, just the way the worlds are, they're just unique. But yeah, the battles are definitely slow. I remember the last time I played it, I would just like enter in commands and then go do something else for like a minute, and then I'd come back, enter in commands again.
Like, good, Nina's not dead. Okay, keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Patrick, I'm surprised you didn't. I'm surprised you didn't bring up Kudelka. I feel like that's one that is like lost to obscurity.
Oh yeah,
like maybe it's
that was like a
obscure.
Shadow Hearts precursor, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just recently, it was my friend Chris in Canada, who's my old time friend gamer, let me borrow his copy when I went out there a few weeks ago and take it back down to Indiana and play it, because I hadn't played it literally since we were in high school together. And I don't know if I would give it a remake, because Shadow Hearts and the rest of the series is so strong. But I think there's just something really cool about survival horror RPGs.
There's not that many of them.
They're pretty rare.
There aren't that many.
Yeah. Very small amount.
If I had to pick something that I would rather see the remake of, it would be Parasite Eve. Just because I know, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when there was a whole thing about the something symbiogenesis that Square Enix was doing, and it was just ended up being an NFT, but everybody thought it was
a new
Parasite.
Oh yeah, got everyone's hopes up.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, the most excited. Parasite Eve I would love to see a complete remake for. And I think the world's ready for it. With how successful the Resident Evil 2 remake was, I could see this nice hybridization of like RE2 remake and Parasite Eve and meeting somewhere in the middle. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, this is probably like the best time ever for it to come out, actually. I feel like survival horror as like a genre has only gotten more like popular over the years.
Totally.
And RPGs are kind of back in the spotlight again too. So having a combination of
single player experience is big.
Like I feel like it would do like really well in this landscape, actually.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 was a banger, so I mean it's kind of like up there in the same type of like same light, So I'm all for it. I support it. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Well, if they do it well.
In this podcast, we give lots of great ideas, and Square Enix listens to us all the time. So here's just another topic for them. They can
there we go. Please do it.
See ya.
On the flip side, what is a game that you think is the worst of the PS1 canon? Like, what are we saying? And this could be like, don't go by what you think reviewers would say. Go in your heart. Like this is the game that I try to stay as far away from as possible.
God,
very good question. Yeah, let me think that one.
I can start us out if you want.
Yeah, start us out.
Go for it.
Yeah, so, what you got? What's your worst?
Jason's got me on buying a bunch of classic games, and there was one.
You're welcome.
PS1 RPG that I hadn't played that I saw for relatively cheap, and here I am thinking like I'm gonna give it a chance. It is made by some people who have made some of my favorite RPGs of all time, Camelot. Do you know what?
I already know what you're getting at.
We already know where you're going.
Yeah, Beyond the Beyond, aka Random Encounter Simulator.
Oh yeah, that's brutal in that game.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's so weird thinking of a genre or a developer that made games like Shining Force 2 and Golden Sun, and you have this awkward middle child that nobody talks about, and there's a reason. And I try to come in and give it like the fairest chance of like, okay, it's an old game. I know that I play old games all the time. It's cool. But like, no, I think it really is as bad as everyone says it is. I'm right there with it. I don't know if it's worth the time. So
I never got super into that one. I know Evan actually played it for a bit though. I remember.
I don't know how we got it though, but I remember playing for like, I don't know, maybe an hour, and man, I dropped it. I
thought you played it longer than that.
Not really, because I was like, oh, cool, it's like Breath of Fire 3. Well, it looks like it is. Okay, it looks like it's pretty cool, but I don't know. I got bored pretty quickly and just like, Just I wasn't feeling it. Just yeah. So
To its credit, aside from Kingsfield 2, like it is the first RPG on the system.
Yeah,
They had some
to be
growing pains.
fair, yeah, I gotta give a little bit of credit there.
Gotta work out
But
some
coming
kinks.
off of Shining Force 2, like Shining Force 2 is in my top 10 games of all time.
Yeah.
Like, the
Love
game
that
is
game.
incredible.
Shining Force 2 is probably my favorite tactical RPG, I would say, actually.
It's
Wow.
like
Yeah.
such a happy game. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a happy RPG. Like you get to say that very often about games.
So, like,
the
charming.
music is just so it's very charming. Okay, what are your guys' games like? Please stay away from this game.
Okay.
God.
I mean, I think this one gets pretty bad reviews too, but yeah, I was not a fan of Hashigami Ruining Blue Earth. I don't know if you guys know of that
Oh,
one.
really?
It's like
We were just talking about that before you guys joined the call.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashigami, really.
It's been a while since I played it, but like I remember I just wasn't invested like at all. Just I think there were some gameplay mechanics that seemed a little I can't remember if it was like kind of grindy or a little unfair or I don't know. It just feel like it didn't respect my time as well as some other games did, which is kind of, to be fair, is
That's saying something on the PS1.
yeah, I would say to be
it's
fair,
like-
that's a pretty common criticism of games in general back then. But yeah, that one I just never really got into. I just compared to other tactical RPGs on the system, I just didn't see much point in playing that one.
Is that the one where you would also lose characters permanently in 2 when they died?
Oh,
I wouldn't be
I
surprised.
think so. I never read about that.
Vandal Hearts. So I know what Vandal Hearts or something like that. One of them, like when you lose characters, it was kind of like Fire Emblem, where
Oh yeah,
when
the
they're gone, they were
permanent
gone.
death. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of that mechanic. I get that some people like it because it kind of adds like a sense of
Realism
like
to it.
tension and like it makes you really strategize your moves. But
maybe too stressed out.
to me,
man.
it just adds
Oh,
stress
no,
and anxiety
same.
and stuff. And I'm like restarting the battle if one of my dudes dies. So
Patrick's
So-
gonna have opinions.
Yeah, I like that, but I'm a big Fire Emblem player. But I think it works in Fire Emblem because they've really built around that. Where I think other places where you see it, they just kind of
That's a
threw
good
it
point.
in.
Yeah.
So like, I get you. Like, I think it just depends on how the developers create the rest of the experience. So yeah,
definitely.
not too much hate thrown at you for that.
No, but I think it definitely depends on like the type of gamer you are too. You know, some people just kind of like that, like that extra element thrown in there.
Yeah. Evan, what about you? What
Oh,
is
man.
the one game?
The one game for the PS1 to stay away from. I mean, kind of piggyback off it earlier though. Beyond and Beyond was like one that I know isn't one of the first ones, man, but I couldn't get with it. It just something about it was just not appealing to me. Yeah, the graphics look appealing, which is what sunk me into it. But no, it was just it's gonna be no for me, dog.
It's
on
even
that
still
one.
like a worse version of like Wild Arms and Suikoden as far as like
It really
as
is.
far as like 2D like visuals go. You know,
It's weird to think that those all came out at the same time-ish. Like it's not like Legends of Dragoon and Final Fantasy VII where there's 3 years apart, but
Right.
they look the same. It like those
Right.
games literally were pretty much back to back to back, and they're all the beginnings of their genre or their series. Thank you.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have an excuse, like there definitely could have been more thought into what they were going to do with it. But yeah, we've
agree.
beaten that horse dead. That horse is dead.
Beyond
Quit it.
sustained
He's-
enough damage
He's
here.
had enough.
I can jump in real
Was that,
quick.
wait,
and
was
give-
that was the Simpsons quote, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Stop,
Jason,
he's already dead.
He's already
Yeah.
dead. We quote the Simpsons all the time.
Classic.
All the time. Yeah.
Real quick, something we haven't talked about yet, then probably a personal disappointment, but I think a lot of people didn't like this one. I was not a fan of Alundra 2.
Oh yeah, it's a good
and
one.
reading
Yeah.
about the first one and thinking like
You
this
mean
is
not
Legend-
Zelda?
Yeah, this is Zelda-like.
AKA
And like
not
I
Zelda.
yeah, I had to get the second one because it was like readily available, and I'm like, here we go. But no, different developer, different genre overall. It was just not a fun game, and I think my expectations were too high for it. But I would say if you're looking for a game and you hear Alundra, you definitely want the first one and not the second one.
Oh yeah.
Which sucks because the second one's like way more available. So like,
like
if
a
you're
lot
buying it
cheaper.
in the used game market, it's way cheaper, and you're gonna be like, cool, I'll get this, but you're gonna be sorely disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I think when we talk about like games that we do like and games that we don't like, the games that tend to come up the most for don't likes are not Square Enix games, and the games that we come up that we do like are Square Enix games. Do you guys think that Square Enix, and I guess like it wasn't even Square Enix at this point. It was Square, and it was
Squaresoft.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Squaresoft. Do you guys think that these two developers dominated this era, or do you think that like that's not necessarily a fair assessment?
I mean, I think they kind of did. I feel like Square did for the most part, and I guess Enix next. How did we not even talk about Dragon Quest this entire podcast yet?
There's only
well,
one though.
There's only one,
Dragon
yeah,
Quest
but
7,
it's that one.
it came out so
Yeah.
late in like
late.
Mhm.
America compared to Japan. So, but by
Yeah.
the time it came out, like the visuals just looked like super dated compared to every other PS1 RPG coming out at that time. Definitely didn't help.
I think though, like at least in America, like Ad Campaign just pushed Square. Like everything was Square. Like
Mhm.
Final Fantasy VII was a huge dealio, and just hearing that over and over. And then my cousin who got me into games too, like also just played Square's games.
Mhm.
And to be fair, there's a great quality of games there, so like it's not bad.
Mhm.
But like we never really heard of Game Arts, you know, and Grandia. We never really heard of Atlus's Persona. Like those didn't really show up. So
Even
I
Enix
think,
games were still like
They're-
they were like if you were in
was on
the
a bunch.
circle, you knew them, but like
Yeah.
if you
like
didn't-
I did enjoy Star Ocean too. That's Enix, right? Star Ocean. I'm pretty sure it's theirs.
Yeah, they published
yep.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
and
so,
Valkyrie
like,
Profile, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like those are big ones, but like you have to be like again deep in RPGs, at least at the time, to
If
like
you know,
really
you know.
or if you know,
Yeah,
or
if you
you're
know, you
reading
know.
like you're reading Game Pro or something to like
Yeah.
know. Otherwise, if you see it next to Final Fantasy VII, why would I buy that one when I could just play Final Fantasy VII? So I think it is a little skewed.
I feel like SquareSoft had a lot of like crossover appeal to their games, like back in the day. Like some of those more like kind of anime inspired RPGs, like Grandia or something, that just may not appeal to certain types of gamers who are like, oh, like I don't want this kiddie anime stuff. I want something
Yeah.
like serious and gritty. And SquareSoft,
I need edginess and big swords.
right, exactly. And like
Yeah.
SquareSoft had like a lot of like just kind of more mature, unique settings, kind of compared to a lot of other games around that time.
Yeah.
That was always like the whole push back in the day. It was just kind of like the more nitty gritty realism here in the West, at least it seemed like.
Because like kids wanted to play something that kind of felt like, you know, a little more mature and like cooler and older, and kind of SquareSoft games kind of captured that feel pretty well.
Yeah.
I even remember Final Fantasy IX had was it a Coke or Pepsi commercial?
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Yeah,
just those
there's
little
a
things.
Coke one, I think, wasn't it, with
Yeah.
9?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
Like that, you had those things that were just like indoctrinated in you because they had the money, so they just pushed and pushed and pushed.
Yeah.
yeah. You know, like
that kind of helps a little bit.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure. Like I do think there was obviously still a lot of other great developers and games at that, and great RPGs at that time coming out, but SquareSoft definitely kind of took the spotlight more often than not, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, from here, well, especially with the Square Enix merge, I think Dragon Quest got better and Final Fantasy got worse, with the exception of maybe like
I would agree. Yeah.
10 and 12. Like, well, obviously,
Yeah.
like those are good games, but I think Final Fantasy has been very like iffy, and Dragon Quest has been on a very big incline.
11 was
Right.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, 11's
11's like one of the only games I platinumed of all time. But I think to your point though, I feel like maybe there's something to be said there, because I think Final Fantasy, like, I guess you could say after 12, it became very much not as like, I don't know, medieval, if you'll call it that way. Whereas like Dragon Quest stayed that way, swords and shields and magic all the way.
Mhm.
But like, and I think that's where my enjoyment is rooted. Like it's in that setting, like from Final Fantasy 1, like that's where it's all started. So I think losing that a little bit just makes it a bit different for the gaming landscape nowadays with RPGs. It's changed.
Yeah, like Dragon Quest is definitely stuck to its roots. It's like known for that, basically, whereas Final Fantasy kind of just keeps straying further and further away from their like
It's
Mhm.
very
original
progressive
roots.
in its way. Yeah, they're trying out just different things. Like I don't know, I enjoy 15, but obviously it's very modernized and it's very different from like its humble beginnings, like for the NES. But as Dragon Quest, it sticks to its roots and it knows what works, and it just keeps on expanding upon that.
Because I think was Dragon Quest 8 the first one under Square Enix when they had merged.
Yes.
I believe.
I think
I
so.
think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was like an amazing
They-
game. You know, I think that's like a lot of people's like favorite in the series, or it's definitely like one of the fan favorites for sure.
I have a note here. They merged at the same time Final Fantasy Anthology came out, which was Final Fantasy Anthology
yeah.
was the last RPG to come, or sorry, Origins.
Origins, that's right.
That's
I
like
remember
one
that.
and
One and-
It
one
was the
and two,
last
I
RPG
think.
that came out. Yeah, that came out on the PS1. So right as that was happening in the US is when they went through their merge. So we didn't really get to see that until we hit PS2 era.
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay, let's wrap up this discussion. And this is a shame-free topic. Okay, and
Okay.
I want you guys to say what you think your top 5 best on the PS1 RPGs are. You do not have to worry about them being in any particular order.
Good.
All
Yeah, I was
right?
like, good. Very- 'cause
Yeah,
I
good.
could- I
that-
could not
that,
put-
that creates a
Right.
whole new layer.
Right.
Evan, I want to hear from you first, bud.
My top 5 in no particular order. That's a
Yeah.
good question. Well, for sure, Chrono Cross is up there. That may be my number 1, honestly, the more I think about it, though. Probably that one. Breath of Fire 3. Maybe Final Fantasy 7 is 5, and 8 is in there as well. And I'm just going to throw it in there. Monster Hunter 2.
All right.
Yeah.
I do love me
I'm
some
gonna do
Monster
it.
Hunter too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it when people have that like game that nobody would expect anyone to say, because it's, you have that huge attachment to that game. So I think it's awesome
Yeah.
when people.
Oh
come
yeah,
up with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
love that game. Put so many hours into just raising monsters and just raising the stats and training it. Yeah, blast.
All right, Jason, how about you?
Jeez, why you gotta pick me next? I can give you a few really easy. So 9 is probably my number 1, but I can definitively say that Final Fantasy 9. I probably also include Tactics. I think that's pretty revolutionary for what I liked. Somewhere on the list would probably be the first Parasite Eve. I think that game was very solid. I'm trying to think and like look at these to be like, what would I include? Like, bro, I don't even know. Man, I think if we would count it, because I don't know if it's really an RPG, but I did really like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I know that's a big stretch, but there's RPG mechanics, but it's not a real RPG. And then I would also probably throw 7 in there too.
Okay.
I think 7 was it was good for what it was, but also I think I can respect it for what it did for the genre, pushing it forward.
Time has changed your opinion.
Yeah,
Well,
time has
basically,
changed my
yeah.
opinion, but at the time I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's the first game I cried when I was playing. So like yeah, like that's probably where I'd go with.
Nice.
All right, Corbin, what you got?
So I'm definitely gonna pair it Final Fantasy 9. That might be my favorite. I don't know. It's definitely one of the ones that comes instantly to mind.
Yeah.
Xenogears would be there as well. Probably Grandia. And then here it starts getting harder. Games like Wild Arms 2, Chrono Cross, Star Ocean: The Second Story.
Oh yeah, Star Ocean.
I know,
There's,
right?
there's so many to pick from. It's hard
Yeah.
to say.
So many.
Yeah,
So
so
many.
those. I mean, I know I'm like getting more than 5 now, but those come to mind.
Any of the
Yeah.
RPGs that came out between 95 and 2002.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
They're all
much.
the
It's super
same.
specific. Yeah.
All right, Patrick, what are yours?
Yeah. What you got?
Okay. In no particular order, I would say Wild Arms 1, absolutely. Lunar Silver Star Story, I think, just a big fanboy of that game. Final Fantasy 9 and Xenogears. And then one game that I'm surprised that we did not talk about at all, because it really is such a good game, is Tales of Destiny 2.
Oh yeah, Tales.
Oh, yeah.
How do we
Mhm.
forget
Is that
that?
Tales
I
of
think it's-
Eternia? The
Yeah,
original
it was
game?
Tales of Eternity. So depending on where you are, when
Mhm,
I got
yeah.
it was Tales of Destiny 2, but some people refer to it as Eternia, which I didn't know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Maybe it's like a Canada versus the US thing. That game is wicked good. Like, I had such a good time with that game.
It's pretty unique too for compared to other RPGs on the system.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
action
for
RPG.
sure.
Definitely. Another popular one I'm surprised no one really has brought up is Suikoden 2. I know that's like a huge
Yeah.
fan favorite. I know a lot of people that consider that to be like one of the greatest JRPGs ever, if not like the greatest. I don't put it quite that high, but I definitely really, really respect it. I think it's an awesome game.
Story wise, yes. Gameplay, no. That's what I feel about that.
Mm.
Story wise, absolutely. I think it's definitely one of the best ones, but gameplay is, I think, what holds it back a little bit.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Mm. All right. Well, I have plenty of recommendations now for RPGs I need to play. God knows I need more games to go through. We're going to take a quick break. Thanks, everyone, for joining us so far. Stick around. We have more to come. But please let us know your thoughts so far. What are your top 5 RPGs in no particular order? Let us know over on Twitter, Instagram, or Discord. We chat about games all the time. If you're liking what you're hearing so far, feel free to leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. And we'll be right back.
And we are back for part 2 of our episode on PS1 RPGs. And of course, it would not be RPGaymer if we were not playing a game of poorly described things. So this time, because we were talking about PS1 RPGs, we figured that we would do a poorly described version of PS1 RPGs. So Jason, what are the rules for our production boys?
Production boys. Okay,
Hey.
I hope they're ready. They have agreed to work together, so they're going to be combining forces to answer our questions. But Patrick and I have pre-prepared several games for you all. We're going to give you a poor description as your first clue. Hopefully you all can guess it. If not, we have a second clue that's a little bit more on the nose for what the game might be, but could be a little abstract. And then finally, we do have a final clue, which we're hoping gives enough description to know what the game is, so you can kind of finally take your guess. We never keep track here. It's all just for fun. And then, as Patrick said, this is PS1 RPG themed, so they are all PS1 RPGs. So just keep that overall clue in mind. And then, did you want to go first, Patrick? Want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first for you guys. So my first poorly described game is Game of Thrones, but make it a Disney musical.
What?
Game of Thrones that make it.
Well, I haven't seen Game of Thrones for once. I'm already off to a bad start here.
I only seen one season, so I'm in the same boat ish.
Focus on the other part more then.
Game of Thrones with a Disney musical.
Is that a Rhapsody musical adventure?
I was about
It
to
is
say that.
not Rhapsody, and that was the little concern that I had about that one.
Okay.
I'll give you a little clue. My first clue is wait. How many times has this game been released?
Lunar?
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, okay,
I see it now.
I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
thinking of the boat song with Luna. Like, okay, yeah, there's some
Yep.
singing in there.
There you go.
Yep.
And the intro song is like a full on. It's like a full on musical.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of like
It
that one
really
part in
is.
Kingdom Hearts 3
Man.
when you go to the Frozen world, and all of a sudden the song from Frozen starts playing, and Goofy and Donald are like, "What the fuck is that?
What is happening?
What world is this?
All right,
Nice,
Jason,
not bad.
what you got?
Okay, next one here. I wrote it down. A group of misfits join forces to feel better about themselves and maybe save the world.
Every RPG ever.
I know about to
It's
say,
literally-
is that every
literally-
RPG?
Literally
I'm sorry.
every RPG.
Okay, wait. Group of misfits join.
Misfits.
It is very vague.
Trying to think of what this would most accurately describe.
Rudy's kind of a misfit. No, but that's not it.
It's not really a team of misfits.
No, it's not a team. All right.
I can give you another
Final
clue.
Fantasy VIII?
Mm-mm.
No.
I'm down for another clue.
Okay. Is this the progenitor of dodging lightning bolts?
Final Fantasy 10?
Well, it's got to be PS.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
PS1.
PS1. Dodging lightning bolts.
Okay, so something similar to that.
Dodging lightning bolts. Team of misfits.
I guarantee you know what it is.
Final Fantasy 9?
Yeah.
I was
Final
like,
Fantasy.
oh yeah,
okay.
those mini games definitely.
You gotta jump the jump
The
rope.
jump
It's
rope.
Vivi or
Oh,
Echo.
God.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yeah,
also
okay.
that like fight scene at the beginning of the game with
Yeah, that's right.
Zidane and Blank, I think. Yeah.
It's so
Like,
hard
yeah,
to get
they're doing
100
epic.
on that.
Oh, that's like-
So
yeah.
Yeah,
hard.
what the heck?
I remember I restarted that like so many times as a kid trying to get 100. I don't remember if I ever actually did it. So
Yeah, I think I kept doing that too because my strategy guide told me it was a good item, and I'm like, I gotta do it.
Gotta have
I
it.
spent so much time. Gotta
It
have
was
it.
the strategy guide that made you go on Google in order to.
yeah, I was gonna say that
Play
strategy
on-
guide.
play
sucked.
online, play
It's like
online.
the
It
worst
is
strategy guide of that
trash.
era.
That was the one.
It basically
That-
it basically just tells you to go online for everything.
I
Also,
don't know if you guys knew this, but did you know that you could go online and find this information you just paid for in a book? It's great.
Right.
did you?
Yeah, that was a...
Can you beat the hippo game without having the controller that had like the rapid input? To,
Yeah.
like, I don't know how you
Yeah.
beat like the hippo races with Vivi if you don't have that like.
No, how are you gonna do
rapid-fire
it?
Controller.
It's
Man,
not possible.
It's been so
Like,
long since I played that mini game, but I do remember it being hard as hell.
Okay,
Patrick, you're up next.
you guys ready? So I gave you my easiest one, and it gets harder from here.
Ooh, bring it on.
Yeah,
Ready
maybe
for a
same.
challenge.
We'll see.
Okay. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you went left instead of right? Went on a fishing trip with your dad instead of staying home? Little did you know that if you had asked for extra mayo on your sandwich in another life, you'd actually be dead.
Chrono Cross?
I'm about to say that, yeah.
Oh, you
Chrono Cross?
nailed it.
Yeah. you said fishing, I knew right
Yeah,
away
the
what
fishing
you're
thing,
talking about.
I was like, okay. I played that
There you
game
go.
just last year, so the story's still kind of fresh on my mind.
My clue for it was the multiverse before multiverses were cool.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll bring a win too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I get the Mayo reference. What
No,
is
it
it?
was just like it's because the game is a what if scenario. Like,
Oh, what ifs. Oh, I
What,
see,
what
I
if
see.
someone was dead and like
That
a
changed the
different- yeah, it
projected.
changed-
Like
yeah,
the-
you got it.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
Yeah,
Ashton
there you
Kutcher,
go.
yeah.
Literally
All right.
butterfly effect.
I got the next one. Legend foretold of a great warrior from centuries past freeing the kingdom. With the land in peril yet again, it's time the legend is summoned and the empire stopped.
All RPGs ever made.
I was
Right.
like,
No,
that, that sounds
this
pretty
has
obvious, similar.
Specific stuff that I feel like is
Okay.
unique to this game.
Okay.
I can give you a 1A clue. I don't think this game was mentioned at all yet in our discussion.
Was not.
Oh.
Maybe I'm too abstract. This time the legend is summoned once again. I give my next clue.
Okay.
I'd like to give a shout out to a personal favorite enemy name of mine, the Thirst Quencher Empire.
Oh, duh. Brave Fencer Musashi?
Yeah.
Oh,
Brave
yeah,
Fencer.
yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, summon. Duh, the
That's-
very first part of the intro, yeah.
Summon, yeah.
It's actually
Legend
the
I should
next
have caught that.
That's actually the next retrospective we're going to work on, too. I
There you go.
just started playing that one. So,
So
I think,
good.
I didn't actually pick up that the reason it's called Thirst Quencher is I think that all the names in Japanese are like alcohol. All of the enemy, but they changed it, so it kind of loses it. Like
Oh.
all the names are different.
it's like the same
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
with like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. They changed that one
Yeah,
dude from like
yeah.
Oh,
vodka,
Soda
Joe.
Popinski,
Drunkinsky
yeah.
or whatever, to like Soda Popinski.
Exactly.
Soda, yeah, Soda
Oh, I
Pop.
love
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
how PG it be, guys.
I
All right,
love
Patrick.
that. Okay.
Wait, actually, hang on. If we are keeping score, I think you guys are 4 for 4. You got them all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I think some of them we had to have a second hint, but yeah, still
Yeah, okay.
technically counts, I guess.
Yeah,
Pulling
counts.
it down.
Okay. Giant mansions in the middle of the woods? Check. Zombies and other spookies? Check. All this game needs is a self-destruct sequence, and we're set to be the next Resident Evil. Oh wait, wrong franchise.
It's got to be one of the
What?
one of the
I was
Parasite.
gonna say
Eves,
Parasite
right?
Eve.
It's not Parasite Eve. Giant mansion in the middle of the woods.
Oh, Kudelka.
It is Kudelka.
Kudelka.
Yeah, okay. I was like the
okay.
mansion. That's okay. Gotcha.
My clue was, why is a 10-hour game 4 discs?
yeah, I do remember that.
Is it? It's really that short?
It is
Kudelka's
like
that
each
10 hours?
disc is only 2 hours.
Oh,
That
God,
seems like
yeah.
little
Cinematics
that's
on
overkill.
there.
I was like, in there like a lot of voice acting or cinematics or something.
There's
I think.
a ton of voice acting
Uh-huh.
in cinematics. Yeah, like, and the voice acting is pretty decent for a game of that time too. So, kudos to that game.
Okay,
All right, Jason, what
I'm
you
ready.
got?
I think this is a deep cut. We're gonna see.
All right.
Okay, bring
Slay
it.
the Slay the dragon first, and then your adventure begins. But which path will you take, and who will you save? Multiple playthroughs will be needed to see this game's full story. But how much hacking and slashing can one do?
Slay the dragon.
Dragon Valor.
Dragon Valor. That's
Wow.
right. You got it.
All
Very
right, Corbin,
nice.
that was all you. Good job.
I haven't
That's a
played
good
that in
one.
so long, but just the dragon
So
and
long.
the multiple paths. I was like, that sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
You know,
Oh, I am
you're
so-
starting to
so
look
impressed.
familiar. Were you in my PS1 RPG doctorate program?
Probably,
Yeah, exactly.
honestly.
that's a deep one. I would love to see that game get remade and like get some love. I think it had some cool mechanics.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cool
Mhm.
potential there. It's just a little
There's
clunky, I
potential.
think, and from some aspects
Yeah.
from what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, Patrick.
Okay. Man, environmentalists weren't joking when they said that trees were important.
Legend of Mana.
It's not Legends of Mana.
Oh, we've not talked about that game yet either. Wow.
I know.
Oh yeah, another SquareSoft classic. Trees. I feel like trees are important in so many like RPGs.
It is Legends of Legaia.
Oh yeah,
Hey, I got it.
Yeah,
The trees.
I remember
baby.
yeah, Genesis trees.
Yep.
Get it, Game Informer. I wasn't sure if this was gonna be my my clue or the original thing. It was gonna be grow Phil Collins tree grow, but I wasn't sure if you guys would get that because
Phil Collins
posted that because Phil Collins was in Genesis.
I see what you're saying.
I wouldn't have made that
My-
connection to be honest. But
My
probably
my
not.
other clue was some characters get Omni Slash, some get Lionheart, but nothing compares to right down left up right down left.
oh, that would have gave it away. To
Yeah,
me.
I would have got that one for sure. Yeah.
That's nice.
Which is the actual move that the character does too.
Yeah.
I always liked how your little like raw Suryu blade like kind of grew throughout the game too. I think Legend of Legaia had some cool aspects then with like changing your weapons and armor like on yourself in battle. It actually like reflected what you had on.
I wanted to
not a
talk
lot of
about it
you always
earlier,
appreciate that.
but I think for me, like that is a game that had the potential to be one of the best because the story is surprisingly good. But I think doing the same moves, like the same combos over and over again, was what made the game really stale for me. And I know you could say like, well, you do that all the time in RPGs, but like literally, there is a best combo to use.
Yeah,
The variety kind of goes out.
the novelty kind of wears off after you figure it out for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are what, 7 and 7? You're like pretty good right here.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. We're
It's almost
done,
like
so.
they do YouTube videos on this.
It's almost like they know what we're talking about. Yeah.
No,
Okay,
a
here we
little bit.
After suffering a great loss, a scientist's creation turns out to be humanity's doom. You might want to be cautious believing everyone you talk to, as things are heating up quickly.
I can't. Jason and I talked about this yesterday. Jason, I can't believe you didn't change this with what I said.
Final Fantasy
No,
VII.
I couldn't. No, but that's actually not a bad guess
scientist
based on what it
thing,
is.
kinda,
Yeah.
Scientist.
You might want to be cautious believing everyone you talk to, as things are heating up quickly. I think my next two clues might be giving it away, but do you want the next clue or think a little bit?
Evan, you have any ideas?
Scientist. I was gonna say Xenogears, but I don't think that's it.
No.
Here you go. How about this? It is Christmas time in New York City.
Oh, Parasite Eve.
Oh, Parasite Eve. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I literally guessed that early, and then I wasn't even like thinking about it for like that for that question.
Things are heating up quickly. My last clue would have given it away too.
yeah,
is that
Sorry.
the opera will never be the same for me.
Oh yeah,
My last one.
those two definitely give it away.
The fire. Yeah,
Patrick, what was yours?
We were talking about this yesterday, and I wanted to do Parasite Eve, but I let Jason get the pick because he hasn't played as many PS1 RPGs. But if I had done that one, it would have been, man, this opera is fire.
This opera's fire. Yeah,
This opera straight fire.
I had to research a little bit to make sure I was getting my like quotes right. And the Wikipedia article that retells the story of Parasite Eve is funny, but like shortened. But everyone spontaneously combusts, and I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. Thinking back, like that guy blows up, they go into the park, people blow up, like he talks to a
person
scientist,
melts, yeah.
he combusts. I'm like, that's like the story of the whole game. Everyone spontaneously combusts.
Literally.
There's definitely a lot of like gruesome.
That's a
deaths
nightmare.
early on in that game.
Yeah. You become an orange blob, and that's your fate. All right, Patrick, you got one more, right?
I got one more. Okay, this might be the hardest one. I don't know. You guys are kind of killing it, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh man.
All right. Now accepting applications to be a hero. The only job requirements: 1, be a badass. 2, be a dead badass.
Dead.
Be a
Okay.
badass and be a dead badass.
Who is dead?
I was thinking of Grandia, but he wanted to be an adventurer, not a hero.
Plus, he's not dead.
Yeah, right. Well, I thinking of hero and adventure. I got confused with no, but someone is dead.
I feel like this should
Let me
be
see
really
one.
obvious, but I feel like the whole dead thing should like give it away, but for some reason I'm just like blanking out.
Star Ocean,
Evan, do you have any
Destiny.
idea, or do you want to go to the next hint?
I can be ready for the next hint. I'm
Okay.
drawing blanks here.
Next hint: the only game that makes you sacrifice characters that are already dead.
Oh, Valkyrie profile.
Oh, Valkyrie
Yeah.
profile.
Yep.
Duh.
It's Valkyrie
Oh, that's so
profile.
obvious.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So much death in that game.
And literally
A lot
all
of
of the
death.
characters are dead. Like they're
They're dead.
technically
Yeah,
dead.
no, that's true.
That's true. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. That's a good one.
That's
That
like
makes
got
a
to
lot
be
of
one of the
sense.
most depressing like PS1 RPGs for sure.
I didn't finish it. It made me sad. I was like, this is just a lot of death.
Yeah, it's a ton of death.
The themes around it.
Yeah.
All right,
right,
Jason, take it on home.
Not to put on the pressure, but Patrick, have we ever played the game where we've actually all gotten all of them? I'm pretty sure at some point.
Yeah, I think the Legends of Zelda
Maybe?
when we got it.
Oh yeah, I bet Zelda we got them all. Okay. Last one. A young knight, a creature needing protection. An epic quest falls into your lap. Pack your toys away and get ready for your first adventure.
That
Guardians
would be
Crusade.
Guardians Crusade.
Hey, you got it!
Yeah, let's go.
I'm so proud. Let's go.
We just talked about that
Nice
one in
job.
the video recently, so a little fresh on the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had also just played that one for the first time, and I was like, it's okay.
I mean,
it's like a solid like 5 or 6.
It's
Yeah.
like a game kind of for like newer RPG gamers. You know, it's definitely not supposed to like
Yeah.
blow your mind with like crazy complex features. It's just like a little
Yeah.
fun, charming, simple RPG. You know,
very, very charming. I agree. Nice. Wow, you got all 10, guys. You should feel
Yes.
proud. I wish there was an
Hey.
award we could give you or something, but it's just satisfaction of getting them all.
You
Well,
get
thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah,
a,
thanks.
a platinum PS5 trophy.
And a platinum RPGaymer trophy that
There we go.
don't have yet.
Achievement
covered.
unlocked. Here we go.
There you go.
Well, that was hella fun, and
Yeah.
that was a great episode. We said a lot, like a lot,
Yeah.
A lot was
And time
said.
went by.
A lot of opinions were shared. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think with that, we might be wrapping up here, guys. I appreciate everyone joining us. For Evan and Corbin, I don't think we mentioned this. Where can everyone find you? Where can they follow you online?
So our YouTube channel, Gaming Broductions, is the easiest way. It is Broductions, not Pro. Some people kind of
With
get
the
that
B,
like mixed
yeah.
up. We're like brothers in real life, as
Yeah.
we said. So it's where the Broductions
Yeah.
part comes in.
And there's 2 of us too. It's not just one. So,
Yeah.
which people
Yeah.
sometimes do get it confused with. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, YouTube Gaming Productions, Twitter and Instagram. It goes by Gaming Broductions also. So kind of just on all the social medias for the most part. No TikTok or anything, I guess though. But just kind of the old school stuff.
old school.
Old school. Well, you can find us on the old school stuff too, at HeyRPGaymer for Twitter and Instagram. We mentioned before too that we have Discord. If you want to join our Discord and chat there, you can find the link over on the website rpgaymer.com.
If you enjoyed listening to us today, be on the lookout for our next podcast, the Dragon Quest series, coming up in 2 weeks. We appreciate you all for listening and hope you had a great time. Now go out there and get gaming.